Definitely a couple times every week I want to quit. I think it's less about the photography and more about running a business. I mean, and that's the other thing that for me, being a photographer, it's like 90% of it is running a business and doing bills and retouching and delivering photos and trying to find work and talking to people, and the actual shooting part is like maybe like 30% of it, which for me that's hard. I would rather be kind of shooting all the time.
Depending on what the work that you're doing, for me, I would say it's probably 60-40, 70-30, but mostly business.
I shoot at least 50% of the time and do business 50% of the time, and maybe even shoot 60% of the time and do business 40% of the time. It's because I shoot a lot, and that's not necessarily always for clients, and in fact it usually isn't. A lot of time it's for me.
I mostly got into commercial photography from music, because I was always going to shows and I knew a lot of people in bands and shooting their bands, and really just kind of being out and meeting people, and meeting people from labels at shows, and I mean, a lot of it, most of my jobs up until recently have just been word of mouth.
Ideally, the goal would be to have people hire me and say, do whatever you want to do, and here's a whole bunch of money to do it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, what I really like to do. Basically, I just want people to give me a lot of money to make the work that is interesting to me.
Don't think that you're going to come out of school and start shooting right away. And whenever you start kind of shooting and decide to be a photographer, that you need to give yourself 10 years. And if nothing's working in 10 years, then you might want to pack it up and try something else.
Every time that you're able to see something in a new way, you know, something that you've seen 1,000 times, and now, you know, through photography you see it in a new way, then that's a shiny moment.
I've always been very active with my hands, and I don't mind digital. There are places for it. I'd rather not spend my day in front of a computer, like retouching images. And there's something about this process, and something that is, there's like a responsibility to yourself to like do things right, the right way, kind of all the way through in every little process.
The times that I put film in a camera and shoot, it's a much different feeling. Not to be able to look into, look at the back of your camera to see what you got. It's more, there's more kind of anticipation and more waiting involved. Whereas digital, everything is so kind of quick and to the point, and it takes a little bit of that away. But I think if you started shooting digital, you wouldn't really know that difference.
We are now questioning the ways that we see, that we perceive information. And there are a lot of photographers out there working with that idea right now, and I think that that's something new, and that's something that's terribly interesting, and in a way very important.
When you start out as a photographer, you know, one of the first things that you're taught is that you're marketing yourself to photo editors and art buyers and creative directors, and so you're sending your work to those people, and you want them to be able to say what your work is in 5 words, and it's like, and so it takes a long time to really develop your style, because you're understanding more about yourself and who you are and how that plays into what your style is. And for me, it's very experiential. This is the reason I shoot portraiture. It's because, you know, it's like something that I really enjoy, that I actually, it's not that I don't care about the end result, but it's the process of making the portrait that I really get the fulfillment from.
The technique just kind of becomes you, I guess, the way that you work, and the way that you work and everything that you do over the years that doesn't work just kind of slowly gets phased out?
My first 2 years in the photography program, I think I had almost every camera at some point, where I'd buy it or rent it and use it, and then realize that it didn't work for the photography that I wanted, so I would sell it or just rent something else new. And so I've really tested and used a lot of different things, and and I think that a part of that defines your style in the end, because certain lenses have more contrast, and to a certain extent when you're shooting film, there's a lot more mechanical things that kind of influence the way that an image comes out. And then when you scan it, you kind of apply your own effects. But for me, it's a very, I would say, fine art documentary kind of style. It's pretty straightforward, but it still has an aesthetic to it. So after ruining quite a few plates, you start to learn, how much collodion needs to be on each plate, and you generally have to put not too much, but just a little bit more than it exactly needs, and then work it around and then pour it off.
And then eventually you just kind of have this way to shoot, and you can just walk into anywhere, shoot that, that style. You can look, like I could walk in here and go, okay, I'm gonna have to shoot at 1600, probably 5.6 if I don't want any movement, or if I want a little blur. You can kind of just test it out. Or you just end up kind of knowing a little bit. But those little shoots, like shooting them in the studio and all that stuff, you kind of walk in and go, okay, I know what to do. I could be here for 15 minutes and kind of get it dialed in because I've done it so many times.
I just shot the other day some portraits of a Groves, a friend of mine. We shot here in this studio, and we went down the street, and I photographed her a lot. I took a lot of pictures of her, but now I want to photograph in here, some little details, little things that have to do with light, and then go down the street where I photographed her now without her, and then just photograph things that are there, and then also photograph from a distance the area that I photographed her in, and then edit all of those pictures together. It's hard for me to say that I love doing this thing over this thing, because honestly, for me, everything is kind of like an exercise in seeing.
You're always figuring out how to make things happen no matter what. You're always going to be faced with all of a sudden a crisis, and it's how do you work through it and get the end result? It's just like any other job. It is still a job at the end of the day, and you do want to be successful and at least be able to pay for the things that you want to pay for. So it's you don't want to sell yourself out and do work that it makes money, but it's not what you want to do. So I think it's not an easy road being an artist.
I do a lot of work that's personal work, that's just ideas that I have and things that I want to photograph, and then promote that as my, use that for my promotions. So I guess in the hopes that somebody who sees the work and sees that it's intelligent work and that it's also strong work will want to work with me, or have me work with them to whatever their goal is.
As far as getting work, it doesn't matter if you think you're a good photographer. It matters if other people think that you can take whatever they're selling and make it better with your vision.
When you're just doing it for yourself, it almost doesn't matter, because who cares? You're just doing it for yourself. But when you're doing it in the realm of commercial work, you have to define yourself. You have to have a style that you can market. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what everybody says. So you have to kind of be able to show people, this is what I do, so if you need this kind of thing, you should hire me or whatever.
But I don't know. If it's not tough, you're probably not doing what you love to do, Or if you're not pushing yourself to be in that kind of uncomfortable spot, you're probably, you're probably missing out on doing what you want to do.